Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Electoral Commission. It's a beautiful, warm winter morning. 2 days exactly to voter registration weekend. Welcome to the nucleus of elections, the election house in Centurion. It's a big Thursday. I'm joined this morning. Let me warmly welcome members of the media. We also have got other people following us on digital platforms. Welcome to everyone who's following us online. But equally so, let me welcome the full staff of the Electoral Commission. And in particular this morning, I'm joined by the Chief Electoral Officer, Ntate Mamabolo, with Deputy CEO, Ntate Shiburi, as well as Deputy CEO, Ntate Shali. We are going to be briefing the nation on preparations for voter registration weekend coming Saturday 20 and Sunday 21. On that note, warmly welcome to the Electoral Commission. Ntate Mamabolo, Kolube, as we brief the nation, let's get going. Thank you.
Thank you very much and good morning, everybody. The Commission declares its full readiness to welcome South Africans of voting age at all 23,706 voting stations nationwide during the forthcoming weekend. The voters' roll currently stands at 28 million voters. This is despite ongoing monthly reductions of approximately 34,000 due to mortality. The voters' roll stood at 27.7 million during the 2024 general elections. The online registration portal is proving to be a crucial element in the growth of the voters' roll. In the context of a local government election, the correct placement of voters in wards is crucial for the delivery of free and fair elections. The Commission calls on every voter to update their details, especially the address, as this will place them on the correct segment of the voters' roll. Therefore, the voter registration weekend offers an opportunity to ensure that voters' details are accurately captured and accordingly updated. Furthermore, in local government elections, voters vote in the voting district in which they are registered. There is no statutory mechanism to vote outside of the voting district in which you are registered. This has been part of the framework since the establishment of democratic local government in the year 2000. And the abiding and operational principle in that regard is that a voter may not vote for a ward councillor in a ward in which they do not reside. Over the 2-day registration weekend, all 23,706 registration stations comprising 22,718 permanent stations, 960 temporary stations, and 28 mobile stations for remote communities. These stations will operate between 8 and 5 on both days. The KwaZulu-Natal province has the highest number of registration stations at 5,021, followed closely by the province of the Eastern Cape with 4,984, Limpopo 3,317, Gauteng 2,832, Mpumalanga 1,846, Northwest 1,730, Western Cape 1,623, Free State 1,614, and the Northern Cape with 739 registration stations. The geographic spread and the number of these registration stations ensure access, inclusivity, and facilitate maximum participation in the electoral process. The increase in the number of stations from 23,151 in the 2021 local government election is driven by the 5-yearly review of wards by the Municipal Demarcation Board and the Commission's efforts to expand accessibility to voter registration services. The Commission has successfully delivered all essential voter registration materials across all the 9 provinces. These materials include the voter management devices, stationery packs, directional signage, and document storage boxes. A stock of 39,000 voter management devices is available to service registration stations across the country. These devices have undergone necessary maintenance to ensure that they are fit for purpose. These devices are central to modern voter registration operations and enable real-time citizen verification, accurate capture of voter details, and seamless integration of registration data into the voter's roll. Where there is no bandwidth connectivity, these devices will operate by storing registration data on the local storage, and such data will be uploaded later when the device is connected to the network. Furthermore, the Commission has undertaken external reviews of the registration app on the VMD as well as the registration portal. The findings that have been identified during these external reviews have now been remediated. The reviews involved code assessment, functional testing, and load volume testing. Overall, at normal load volume, both the registration portal and the registration app have been found to be ready for use this weekend. On matters pertaining to staff, the Commission has appointed and trained 212 registration staff who will be deployed to ensure a smooth and efficient voter registration process. Of the appointed staff members, 37,000 are women, 10,000 are men. Furthermore, 22,000 members are under the age of 35, while 19,000 are between the ages 36 and 50. The rest of the 5,800 staff members are aged 51 years and older. Significantly, 34,000 of the appointed staff members are unemployed yet qualified persons. This highlights the important contribution that electoral events make towards temporary employment opportunities and the provision of skills development opportunity. The recruitment criteria for registration staff were developed in consultation with the National Political Liaison Committee. On the other hand, the names of appointed staff members were shared with local political liaison committees to allow for objections against any individuals deemed to be unsuitable for appointment. The voter registration weekend takes place during Youth Month and when we celebrate 50 years of the June 16 festivities. This is a period in which South Africans honor the pivotal role played by young people in shaping the country's democratic journey. The Commission reaffirms a commitment to advancing the aspirations of young persons, both as voters as well as candidates in the forthcoming election. Given that youth in the age category 18 and 19 years have not had multiple opportunities to enlist on the voters' roll, and since they just became age eligible, over 70% in this age cohort are still to register. The Commission therefore urges all eligible youth, especially first-time voters, to seize this opportunity to register to participate in the forthcoming elections. The Commission's tertiary institutions campaign continues to strengthen youth participation. By 31 March this year, the campaign had reached 269,000 students nationwide, of whom 158,000 were newly registered. Building on these positive results, the Commission will soon roll out another TIC campaign, that is Tertiary Institutions Campaign, to encourage eligible students to register to vote, to verify their registration details, and ultimately to participate in the democratic process at all tertiary institutions in the country. Because of the municipal boundary redetermination process, a number of voters were reassigned to different wards and different voting stations. To ensure that affected citizens remain correctly registered and informed of these changes, the Electoral Commission undertook an extensive targeted communication and registration campaign in the month of May. And during that campaign, it visited 303,000 affected voters across the country. During this process, the Commission successfully added 51,000 new voters and updated the registration details of 252,000 voters, which represents 83% of the total. This initiative reinforces the Commission's commitment to an accurate voters' roll, ensuring all eligible citizens can vote in correct wards. Following the national launch of the 2026 election communication campaign on 27 May, the Commission has rolled out a national multimedia awareness campaign across the country. We have mounted robust outdoor advertising and media campaigns across national and regional media platforms to ensure broad awareness and participation. Furthermore, we have partnered with the SABC in producing youth-focused television programs and voter education storyline integrations into popular television shows and radio drama to encourage greater youth participation. I'm told water is healthier. Dedicated 30-minute interview slots are currently being broadcast on 159 community radio stations. Running from the 8th to the 30th of June, the initiative aims to encourage as many South Africans as possible to register and actively participate in the forthcoming elections. Beats for My Peeps, a youth docu-reality show that premiered on the SABC on the 3rd of June and airs every Wednesday at 6, continues to engage young voters through music, arts, and informative content. In addition to voter education storyline integration, voter education storyline integration commenced on 1 June across SABC's radio drama on multiple stations, as well as in the television drama Scheme Sam. The Commission continues to use popular entertainment platforms to promote voter registration, civic responsibility, and democratic participation. The IEC podcast further supports public engagement by providing accessible discussions on electoral processes, voter education, and democracy education. In addition, the Commission's WhatsApp channel ensures that key electoral updates, voter registration information, and voter education content are shared directly with members of the public in a timely, accessible, and convenient manner. The Commission has also significantly expanded its voter education and outreach program, conducting 34,000 civic and democracy education events that have to date reached more than 6.6 million people countrywide. To further strengthen community engagement ahead of the elections, the Commission has recruited 834 municipal outreach officers. These officers include 52 from the disability sector, reinforcing the Commission's commitment to inclusive electoral participation. On the 11th and 12th of June this year, the Commission trained over 70 members of Blind SA on the use of the universal ballot template as part of the effort to promote inclusive electoral participation. The initiative aims to empower blind and visually impaired voters to confidently cast their ballots independently and with dignity in the forthcoming elections. Workshops with additional disability groups are planned and ongoing to ensure that the Commission engages across the full spectrum of disability and incorporates diverse perspectives into its programs and services. Now we deal with election deposits and the online candidate nomination process. Following an extensive public consultation process, the Commission determined and published the election deposits applicable to the forthcoming elections. These deposits are to be paid by those who intend to participate in the imminent elections. Those participants who secure at least a seat in the election have their deposits returned to them. Those who fail in this regard, their deposits are forfeited to the National Revenue Fund. With the deposits now determined, the Commission is ready to make the online candidate nomination system available to registered parties and prospective independent candidates to capture their candidates as well as supporter information, respectively. Political parties and prospective independent candidates are advised to ensure that their contact details are accurate and up to date to facilitate effective communication from the Commission. The Commission will shortly commence training sessions for registered parties and prospective independent candidates to prepare them for the submission of candidates and their supporters lists. Comes the Department of Home Affairs decision to operate during the registration weekend. This will provide an opportunity for identity document services to ensure eligible citizens have the necessary documents for purposes of registration. Our contact center is also fully equipped to support voters and stakeholders through a multi-channel service offering assistance via voice, email, live chat, and social media in all official languages. To date, the contact center has successfully managed 51,000 citizens' interactions. This reflects its capacity to provide accessible and responsive voter support. So we call on all eligible South Africans to take full advantage of the registration weekend on 20 and 21st June to register, to verify and update their details on the voters' roll. Citizens must ensure they present a South African identity document, which may be a smart ID card, a green barcoded ID, or a valid temporary identity certificate. Proof of address is not a requirement for registration, but the provision of a place of ordinary residence is required. Meaning, if you don't have an address, you can provide sufficient details of where you reside to enable registration officials to locate you in an appropriate ward segment of the voters' roll. The Commission also encourages voters to use the online voter registration portal, which is found at register2vote.elections.org.za. We also have a facility to locate your correct voting stations via maps.elections.org.za. We are committed to delivering free, fair, and credible elections, and we urge all eligible citizens to play their part in strengthening South Africa's constitutional democracy through active voter registration and participation. Finally, we wish Bafana Bafana all the best for tonight's FIFA World Cup Group A match against Czech Republic, or Czechia as is currently called. As we rally behind our national team, we also encourage all South Africans to play their part by registering to vote during the forthcoming registration weekend. We say, get up, show up, and vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, CEO. Indeed, this weekend, we're all on the ground of South Africa registering to vote, especially our young South Africans. We're looking forward to a very productive weekend. On that note, let me open up the questions for the media. Introduce yourself, your media house, and then pose a question. Thank you so much. I'll start on this side of the room and go that way.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Linda Mnisi from Newsroom Africa. Just on the voters' roll, you indicate that obviously it's now sitting at 28 million, but we know that showing up at the polls is something else, and that's what we usually gauge the success of this registration period. So what is your target when it comes to voter turnout? But secondly, I don't know if you touched on this, but to fulfill your constitutional mandate, one of the things that the Commission needs to do is to ensure that everybody is able to participate, register to vote, regardless of where they are, right? That there are no hindrances. So how are you then helping those who are blind, who are deaf, who cannot get themselves to these registration or voting stations? But thirdly, we are continuously having conversations about voter apathy. There are people that know the value of voting, but their circumstances tell them otherwise, so they don't want to vote. They're registered to vote. They know the importance of voting, but they don't want to, given their lived realities. So how are you ensuring, or how are you convincing them to come to the polls come November? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm going that way. Manda, please check for me at the back. Yes, in that proceed.
Good morning. Alpha Ramshwana here from Eyewitness News and 702. My question relates to the legal challenge we saw yesterday at the Electoral Court with the Umkhonto weSizwe Party. It just so happens just a few months before the local government elections. Do you think the case could also be an attempt to discredit the upcoming local government elections? It's a case that has to do with the 2024 elections. It's been more than 2 years already. Judgment has been reserved. But do you think it's an attempt to discredit those upcoming municipal polls? Thanks.
Can I take the last one before you respond? I see two hands. Okay, let me take the two and then I'll come to the side. Thank you so much. Let's proceed.
Thank you. My name is Muloto from ENCA. Just two questions. When you say proof of residence is not a requirement, how are you going to ensure that you don't have people who are moved from a particular ward to another one for strategic reasons, because perhaps due to demographics? Essentially, how are you going to stop people from voting in areas they don't reside in? Second question is, if memory serves me well, in March this year, you pointed out that between November 2025 and March 2026, you had managed to register 260,205 new registrations. From that time to date, do you have new numbers of new registrations? Can you give us an updated number that you would have added?
My name is Yamtanda Kapa from News 24.
Yeah. Samtanda, just give me your volume.
Oh, volume, okay.
Yeah, thank you.
It's Yamtanda Kapa from News 24.
Yeah.
Yes. You're saying that since the 2024 elections, you've managed to register 300,000 more, if my calculations are on point. 27.7 million to 28 million, that's 300K more. Do you really think that's enough, given that it's been more than 2 years? And why do you think you can target 11 to 12 million over one weekend if that's the number that you managed to register? What's really standing in your way of registering more people, really? And then, how can you be certain that those VMDs or scanners are not going to act up like they did in the 2024 elections? And also, can you get an indication of the number of parties that are registered for this election? Thank you.
Let me come this side if we have covered this row. Let's start at the bottom. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Veli Mtiani. I'm with SABC News. In terms of the National Population Register, how many people currently, as things stand, are eligible to vote if I compare with those that are registered to vote? Thanks.
Thank you so much. Looks like all the hands are covered. Shiburi will deal with part of the questions and then we'll wrap up. Thank you.
First, on the National Population Register, there's around 39 million age-eligible citizens. In other words, people who have attained the age of majority, 18 years and above. On the voters' roll, we currently have just over 28 million registered voters. The statistics on voter registration and turnout. The health of a democracy is measured among others, by the rate at which citizens remain engaged, either as registrants on the voters' roll or as participants in an election. The target of the Commission is not a numeric one, but it is to make facilities to facilitate and enable all citizens to avail themselves of the platforms available to register as citizens, not for the registration, not as an end, but for purposes of participating in an election. So we do not have a numeric target, but we place facilities at the disposal of citizens to register, and we prepare on a basis of 100% voter participation in an election. How do we register persons without proof of an address? And how do you avoid people registering in wards in which they are not ordinarily resident? You would recall in the Constitutional Court matter that dealt with the requirement of an address on a voter's roll. The court recognized the uneven development nature of the South African society and said all that the Commission must do is to satisfy itself that the voter has on face value provided correct information so that we can account for them on a correct ward segment of the voter's roll. Providing incorrect information in order to register in wards and participating in election in wards where voters are not registered is a criminal offense, and if people are found to have done that, they open themselves to prosecution. However, there are also guardrails in that before the voter's roll is certified for an election, it is placed for inspection, open for inspection. Anyone can inspect and object against a person appearing or not appearing on a certain segment of the roll, and the Commission is time bound to consider those objections, to make decisions, and instruct the Chief Electoral Officer to update the voters' roll before it is certified for use in an election. The court case that said yesterday, the court case challenges the outcome of the 2024 national and provincial elections in 2024. On the part of the Commission accepts that courts exist for purposes of electoral justice. In other words, if the Commission has failed in its constitutional or in lawful standard in administering an election, by all means, interested persons must have avenues of recourse. What the Commission takes issue with is that if the court processes are abused not to obtain judicial finality on cases, that has the impact of impacting the public psyche on how it perceives the Electoral Commission. On our part, would rather that the court case is finalized sooner rather than later, so that we can prepare for the next coming election with certainty. Out of deference for the court, because the court is here to deliver its judgment, we would rather that we do not go into the merits of that particular case and defer to the court to make a determination that we will all live by. As it relates to persons who know their democratic right, but however opt out of participating in elections, it is indeed so, and it's supported by data from various research houses and surveys. On its part, the Commission had commissioned the HSRC to do a representative survey of the South African voter. Armed with the outcomes of those surveys, it has become a consultation process with key political institutions, traditional leaderships, the local government as a sphere, interaction with political parties as the major representative of voters to share the findings of that study, because the study tells us a number of things. One, far from having apathy on the part of the South African population, the South African population is disillusioned by a number of factors, including the dividends of democracy. And therefore, while we could occasion improvements in how we administer the electoral process, unless that is met by improvements in the quality of democracy, the lived experience of people, unfortunately, that on its own will not result in improved turnout. So what we're seeing are people who are opting out of the democratic project, not because they don't have information, it's because they have information, but they've made a calculated and conscious decision to opt out because they are not happy with the way democracy has performed over the last while. Inclusivity in our processes. Indeed, we are a constitutional entity and we exist to advance rights to citizens. For that reason, we have a number of measures to be inclusive. For example, a person who is unable to go to a registration station because they are infirm or they have a physical condition, they could cause a member of their household to apply on their behalf so that we can visit them and register them. That's one. Two, they can avail themselves of the online platforms assisted by members of their household to register and to vote. Similarly, during election period, there is 2 days set aside. There are 2 days set aside for special votes. Special votes, by their nature, are intended to avail and extend convenience to voters who, because of a physical condition, infirmity, pregnancy, or disability, are unable to go to a voting station. If they apply and they are approved, we will visit those voters in places of confinement. Similarly, those who can vote but are unable to do so on voting day, those can apply and they can vote at their voting station on the 2 days before the general voter registration weekend. We've indicated that we've increased the number of voting districts. Again, that speaks to inclusivity, to look at the South African social setting and to take purposeful decisions to say, are these communities optimally serviced by the location of a voting station? And if not, we will then relocate, create a new voting district, so that a voting district and a voting stations, so that we procure advantage for voters. We have dealt with the questions around the voter registration and the turnout of voters. That concludes my questions.
May I request my colleagues to give us 2 questions that they have from online?
Good morning, Anele Ngwenya from IEC Digital Comms. At Nonala Mapumulo on YouTube asks, if my daughter in 2024 voted in our national elections, now that she is at university in another district, must she register in a new district where she now resides as a student? And we have another question on Facebook from Ritabile, who says, how is the IEC staff going to be able to exercise their rights to also vote for their preferred ward councillor while they'll be performing their duties outside of usual voting stations?
Thank you so much, Anele. Edicio, as we wrap up.
Thank you. Election staff, like all South Africans, if they know that they'll be engaged in an election on voting day, they must apply, and if approved for a special vote, they can vote either on the Monday or Tuesday ahead of the voting day on Wednesday, so that on Wednesday their focus is entirely on assisting the South African voters to vote. The first question, a daughter voted in 2024 national and provincial elections. She is now at a tertiary institution, I presume, away from home. Election date, we all now know it will be on the 4th of November. So if the young person knows that on the 4th of November, they will still be on campus, they can register using their campus address so that on the 4th, they will vote on campus for the election. However, if they already have their timetable and they know that they will be done with exams and they do not intend to linger on campus, they'll proceed home. And on the 4th, they will be at their home. They can apply and use their home address so that on the 4th, they can vote in an election at home. So this applies to all of us. If you know that on the 4th, you are likely to be away from a voting district in which you are ordinarily resident, either for work purposes or as a student in a tertiary institution, please, when you apply for registration, use the address at which you will be on the 4th, because that way we can default your registration to a ward linked to that address, and therefore you will be able to participate in this election. The last point to make is that there is no corresponding provision akin to national and provincial election. In other words, it is not statutorily possible for a voter to vote in a voting station other than where they are registered and where their name appears on a segment of a ward voters roll. Thank you, Kate.
Thank you so much. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, remember, when we go to voter registration weekend, you register where you live, you vote where you are registered. Thank you so much for coming to our house. Let's keep the information flowing. All of our press releases and every document shared this morning will be available on our digital platforms. Discipline Sentle, go well. Thank you very much. Siyabonga.